Good morning, my dear students. In today's session, we will discuss the questions that are given at book page number 82 of the book Hornbill, right? So I hope the chapter Silk Road is clear to you all. So let us start with the question. So understanding the text, part 1. The first question, give reason. The article has been titled Silk Road. So you have to justify the title of the story. So uh, a trade route called Silk Route existed in ancient times from eastern China to Central Asia and Europe, right? And India was also connected with it. So, since a portion of the route passed through the path of Nick Middleton's journey to Mount Kailash, he has named his travelogue as Silk Route, right? So he took the path which was actually leading through the Silk Route. So that is why he decided to name his article as Silk Road. Moreover, you can also add this point that mostly snow clad road and white topography. It gave the impression of raw silk. So we see that this article, this chapter, it has been rightly titled as Silk Road. Question number 2. Tibetan Mastiffs were popular in China's imperial court. Now, ferocious, sturdy, and fearless, the Tibetan Mastiff dogs were very popular in Chinese courts because of their agility and single track mindedness. And these qualities made them good hunting and guard dogs. So, these mastiffs, they were very ferocious dogs. So that's why they were quite popular in China's imperial courts because of their hunting quality. They were good hunting dogs and also they were good guards. So this is what was found by the narrator on his way to Mount Kailash. So he and his companion, they found these dogs, Tibetan dogs, they guarded the dark tents of the nomads. So when their car approached these dark tents, they found these dogs exploding in action just like a bullet. So they also chased away their car. So thus we see the ferocious quality is mentioned, and thus because of this quality, they were the important part of China's royal courts. Question number 3. The author's experience at Hor was in stark contrast to earlier accounts of the place. Now, when the author he reached Hor, he found that it was situated on the sacred lake Mansarovar. He had heard how various pilgrims had been moved to tears by the sanctity of the place. So, you will mention about the names mentioned in the story Ikai Kawaguchi, the Japanese monk, and the other Swedish traveler. So, both these people they were actually moved by seeing the holiness of the lake Mansarovar, the sanctity of the place. But his experience of horror, it was in direct contrast with theirs. He felt very bad about the place. He found it a dismal, wretched place. There was no vegetation there, and the whole place was littered with a lot of refuse gathered over the years. And thus, the author's experience at horror, it was in stark contrast. He could not actually uh, he did not find the place to be of that uh, way, that the way the other pilgrims they had found it. So he did not have that kind of overwhelming experience when he visited Lake Mansarovar. Question number 4. The author was disappointed with Darshan. Now, what we see that how, in spite of his first disturbing night at Darshan due to bad cold, Nick Middleton he found the town not so horrible. After all, with its basic general stores, the only cafe that it had, then its dust, rubble, and the refuse. But what disappointed him at Darshan was that there were no pilgrims there to accompany him for the Korah. Moreover, nobody understood his language there. So the communication was a big problem, and all these things made Nick Middleton feel disappointed with Darshan. Right, students? Now, question number 5. The author thought that his positive thinking strategy worked well after all. There is a saying, attitude determines altitude, right? And this kind of maxims, these kind of sayings, they pull the mountaineers and trekkers through the tight corners. And Nick Middleton too had a positive and healthy attitude throughout his journey. The hurdles on the way, his ill health, language barriers, loneliness, nothing actually intimidated him, nothing actually made him frightened, and thus eventually his trek continued and finally he found Norbu's company there. So it was all because of the enthusiastic attitude that the author had there. So thus we can say that how the author, he had to face a lot of trouble. By the time he came to Darshan, he also became ill. He had to spend a troubled night also. But whatever the situation be, he never lost his enthusiasm and courage. And when he met Norbu, an English speaking Tibetan there, he became happy. So the writer, he felt happy that they could team up well, and he realized that his optimism had not vanished after all, even though he had to face a lot of problems and difficulties. So, the author thought that his positive thinking strategy worked well after all. Okay, students? Now, let us move on to the second part of the questions. Briefly comment on the purpose of author's journey to Mount Kailash. So, what was the purpose of author's journey to Mount Kailash? So the author went on a journey to Mount Kailash to do the Kora, as is the tradition. So Kora, it signifies, it actually is a pilgrimage to Mount Kailash, which has spiritual significance for both the Hindus and the Buddhists. So for this, the author adopted Silk Route to reach Mount Kailash, and he also faced heavy troubles to reach there. Next, the author's physical condition in Darshan. What was the physical condition of author in Darshan? So we see that how when the author reached Darshan, his condition was not good at all. He was suffering from bad cold and his nostrils got blocked. So he had to breathe through the mouth. He was tired and hungry as well. So when he had uh, barely slept, he woke up abruptly. So when he tried to sleep while breathing through the nostril, he woke up abruptly. He felt heaviness in his chest too. He sat up and cleared his nasal passage and he felt relieved. Though he was not feeling well at the moment, he again tried to sleep, but he was unable to sleep. He also developed a fear in his mind that he would die if he went to sleep there. So he kept awake throughout the night. Next is the author's meeting with Norbu. So here you have to describe that how and where author met Norbu. So how and where did author meet Norbu? Now the author, when he realized that he was a lonely pilgrim there, he decided to wait for the other pilgrims to arrive there. So he went to a cafe, the only cafe in Darshan. He sat there. He sat near the window in the cafe and he saw the pages of his notebook. He also had a novel with him and he was trying to read that novel and then a Tibetan came to him and inquired whether he was English. He was Norbu working in Beijing at Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. So Norbu, he told him that he had come to do the Kora. He had been writing about the Kailash Kora and he was excited when he learnt that the author too had come for the same purpose and said that he would like to work with him as a team. So the author, he got excited. He was happy to find a companion there and they decided to team up for the Kora. ठीक है? Seaton's support to the author during the journey. So you have to read the chapter properly to answer the question because Seaton's role is important from the very beginning of the chapter. If you see that how Seaton, he was a he proved to be of immense help to the author during his journey. So he knew the shortcut route to get off from the Changtam, and the route, this shortcut, it was going to take them directly towards the Mount Kailash. So on the way, he drove the vehicle efficiently. He was a very skillful driver. He knew how to clear the path covered with snow. He risked driving on the icy surfaces as well. He took the author and his companion to Hor, and in darshan, the author's physical condition, when his condition was not so good, then he found that his nose was blocked, he was not able to breathe properly. Then he took him to the Tibetan doctor there, and thus he helped him in getting medicine too. And thus, after finding that the narrator, the author, was quite all right, he was now quite well there, then he returned to Lhasa, because he was to leave the author at Darshan, and he was to return from from that part of Darshan to Lhasa back. So when he was sure that the author was all right, he left the author there. So we see his important role. So you have to understand all the details properly, where Seaton has played a major role, the way he checked the vehicle, the way he changed the tire which were punctured, then the way he knew that how at altitude the fuel expands, and how he warned the author that he should not smoke there, even though he was just joking. So the different parts, taking clues from different parts of the story, you will talk about the skill that Seaton had and how he took author safely to darshan, right? And now the last part of this question, that is, as a Buddhist, he told me he knew that it didn't really matter if I passed away, but he thought it would be bad for business. So this statement, it was made by Seaton there, right? So Seaton jo tha, when the author, they had reached Darshan, and he was suffering from terrible cold, he found it difficult to breathe also. Then Seaton, he took him to the doctor, and doctor gave him the medicine and assured that he was going to get well soon. So Seaton, he decided to leave and go back to Lhasa, and it was that he had said this just like a Buddhist, that he knew it didn't really matter if he died, but he thought that it would be bad for business. Now, as a Buddhist, his belief was that death was the final nirvana, which signifies blowing out of candle. The cycle of birth and death breaks with the attainment of nirvana, which is something desirable. So, when people they visit Mount Kailash to do the Kora, they believe that they would break this cycle of birth and death, and they would achieve nirvana. So, as a Buddhist, he had made this remark. However, as a professional driver helping the tourist, he meant that he felt that author's death would definitely discourage other pilgrims from coming to Mount Kailash, and thus it would adversely affect his business too. So that's why he made this remark. And after making this remark, he left for Lhasa only after he was sure that the author, he would not die there. Right. So we see Seaton making such kind of a remark, which shows his belief towards Buddhism, and how he also believed in nirvana, that is, breaking the cycle of birth and death. So this way you will explain this answer. Right, student? Hope the chapter is clear. So thank you all for listening. Happy reading to you. Thank you.